Scorpio and Gemini. Mm-hmm. This is this is an interesting relationship, and one I find myself in more times than I can even count. Really, I'm a Gemini. I've dated a Scorpio. One of my best friends is Scorpio. Um, mm. This is such a fascinating relationship. It really is because it breaks so many barriers. It breaks so many rules. Um, for both the Gemini and the Scorpio, usually, usually Gemini is a very flitty energy. You know, it's here, it's there, it's everywhere. It's so scattered, and that's part of who we are. You know, our planet is Mercury. Mercury is the fastest planet in the solar system as per revolving around the sun, and you know it goes retrograde several times a year. It's just in our nature as Geminis to be all over the place, and it's so funny at how endearing that is to Scorpios, endearing and also annoying. You know, of course, this relationship could not even get started if either one of these, just again, just like every single relationship, if either one of these people aren't in their presence, if they're not healthy, you know, if they're not fulfilled, and if they're not happy with who they are, so they can thus be happy with other people and be tolerant and actually have a relationship. So let's not jump ahead first. There's absolutely no relationship that is doomed to fail. Absolutely none. Every single one of those energies, for one, can get along with another energy. And I think Scorpio and Gemini is one of those great examples. And let alone that, we all have the 12 different energies within us in some kind of combination. And even if, the Scorpio, for example, with my buddy, is Mercury and Scorpio, with Venus and Scorpio, just Scorpio. And then, for example, the Gemini is Mercury and Gemini and Venus and, whatever. This relationship can totally work, though. Again, as long as either one of those people, actually, rather, as long as both of those people are very much, again, centered and, for the most part, know who they are, why they're here, and just, living life in a kind, tolerant manner. What an interesting relationship. Because when these two individuals are able to create a friendship or a business partnership or a relationship, a romantic relationship, or just being friends, they complement each other so beautifully, and it's incredible. Now, they're very different signs, but again, any one of these energies, any two of these energies, can come together and gain from that relationship. Doesn't matter how wayward it seems. And this particular relationship, first, I think it's a good idea to set the tone for what it means for either one of these, for both of these individuals to be healthy, so a healthy relationship can come about. The Gemini has got to be honest. Again, we are flitting about always. We are very, we're an air sign. We drift like air. It is impossible to grab hold of us, really, or actually it's extremely hard. And even if you grab hold of our bodies, our minds are always free. That is maddening to a Scorpio. That can be so maddening because they need somebody. I mean, their partner sign is Taurus. They're meant to be with somebody who's stable, literally grounded. Pretty much the exact opposite of Gemini, and so the Gemini has to be in their presence and know that they're with somebody. If they're around the Scorpio, they're with somebody who's very much about loyalty and very much about depth and about truth, and that's one of the beautiful things about these two signs coming together is they're both about truth. They just go about it in different ways. Gemini goes about it in an extroverted way. They go about it with talking with people, with talking with everyone in the room, and with noticing little things here and there and observations. The way I see it is the Gemini kind of goes into the thick of the action, and they see all the details that a Scorpio wouldn't necessarily see. But the beautiful thing is both Gemini and Scorpio are interested in finding out the truth, finding out what's going on. They want to understand. for different reasons, but at the same time, they both want to understand, and they augment each other. Their perspectives really help, because while the Gemini is going and learning things and finding out things through their method, the Scorpio sits back, takes it all in, very much more receptive. They're a water sign, they want to feel out the emotions. They may talk to only one or two people, or they may talk to no one at all, and they're perfectly comfortable with that because they're, checking everything out. And so you have that beautiful chemistry of two signs that are interested in the same goal of understanding. Even though the Scorpio wants to use it for personal power, or for water purposes such as healing and nurturing that person. But very often it's centered around, because Scorpio's a fixed sign, centered around themselves and very much of, okay, so how's this going to help me? What's this going to, how's this going to aid me? And it's not necessarily, Scorpio gets a really bad rap for being emotionally manipulative, and at their lowest energies, their lowest manifestation of energies, yes, they can be very unfortunately manipulative. But Scorpios are such a sweet-hearted, sensitive, tender signs, and most of the people in the world, well, I can't say most, but a lot of people don't see that because it's behind that brooding exterior, all the time I talk to Scorpio friends, the one I was talking about before, about how exhausting it is and how frustrating it is that people don't understand their intentions, and how even if they have a blank face, or even more so a frown, how that's not necessarily a negative thing, with my water energies, my moon in Cancer and the house Pisces, I find myself frowning all the time, and it's a very beautiful, healthy thing for me because I don't know, it just expresses my water energy. Water is about empathy. It's about feeling other people's emotions. And Scorpio is tuned into the collective unconsciousness. So people who are Scorpio, who have a lot of Scorpio energies, especially sun sign Scorpios, are able to feel emotions from people in ways that even the people aren't conscious of. They understand, maybe not so much mentally understand, but they feel, and they understand with their emotions, their emotional wisdom, which is vast, infinite. They understand why people say the things they do. And if they don't, then they're going to find out, and then they'll understand. And they have such amazing insight that the world doesn't see unless they're, asked for it. And I think that's a beautiful thing about this relationship, is with all the Scorpios I've ever known, because we've both been in our presence, I've been very flexible as a Gemini and allowed myself to kind of inhabit darker waters than I usually would have, The intensity and profundity of Scorpios can be very intense. It can be very overwhelming for Gemini people's energies. And so it's very important as the Gemini to be flexible and to not give in to, silly air fear, such as getting bogged down. That's the thing about Gemini and any of the water signs, but especially Scorpio, is we can tend as Geminis to run away from intense emotional experiences. And if people's like, oh, I'm having a shitty day, the Scorpio can be in the midst of a beautiful, once in a practically lifetime moment of showing vulnerability of, damn, this is how I feel. It's, however, it's challenging. And the Gemini can run, head to the hills. They may have been so interested in knowing what the mystery behind the Scorpio was before, but they see that dark profundity and we get scared. So we got to get over that as Geminis. We have to overcome that fear, because again, nothing could ever trap us. Not even a Scorpio, who are well known for not to generalize with Scorpio, but Scorpio energy is very much the S&M, the tying up and all that kind of stuff, because it's an interesting, exchange of power and whatnot. Hey, that's cool, to each their own. To a Gemini, that's horrifically scary and terrifying. In fact, out of all of the signs, maybe Aquarius right behind them, but Gemini is going to be the most scared by feeling trapped. Is absolutely our biggest fear. Death is not my biggest fear. Being trapped is my biggest fear. And so as Geminis, we got to be flexible, and we have to understand the nature of ourselves to a very, very, honestly, a wise degree, so that we don't automatically turn off, or even more so, run away from the Scorpio when tough times and tough emotions come about. It's not easy, we're of a very nervous temperament as Geminis. But once we find a place of inner peace, it's important for us to find that place of inner peace, for us to be able to relate to everyone, because that's our job, is to communicate with people and to understand and make connections with people, and heal, um, miscommunications between people, because naturally that's, Gemini sees and wants to do, and to make bridges between people. We got to embrace our higher order and embrace that for this relationship to work. And in turn, oh, well, before we get to the Scorpio bit, Mercury retrograde, what was I just saying? Hold on, tea. Because once a Gemini is not, afraid of being trapped, then they can have the conversation that they and the Scorpio will love, which is the deep probing conversation of with questions that the Scorpio never would have thought of before. Gemini is the master at making questions that that just naturally comes to us. We have questions for everything. We want to understand, and we ask questions that other people don't think of. And especially in my experiences with my Scorpio friends, I've asked questions that they go, huh, and it really gets them to think, and it enriches them, which is, beautiful. It's nice to share that gift, and see the gift that comes back from that is, again, Scorpio perspective is so very different from Gemini's. And yes, there's some differences that are pretty substantial. I mean, maybe the Scorpio and the Gemini aren't going to agree exactly on what they should do with the information that they glean or whatever. But when a Gemini and Scorpio are able to have a conversation, it is going to be one of the best conversations in the world, because it's going to get them both to think differently. It's going to get them both to appreciate a different perspective, or at the very least to have a different perspective. It's always good to have them. You don't have to appreciate different perspectives, but it's good to at least hear them out, else we get trapped and bogged down in narrow-minded thinking. There's a Gemini for you. When a Scorpio gets over their fears of being vulnerable, of sharing too much information, of trust and loyalty, which, by the way, when it comes to a Gemini, it's not too ill-founded to wonder, can I trust this person? I'm a Gemini with Mercury and Gemini. I have a lot of fire energy and integrity and honesty. I never lie. But damn, if I have to be very focused in making sure I don't share. It's not that hard, but it's something I have to think about, because Geminis, we communicate so much. We do have to be very conscious of, okay, what can I not communicate? What's the secret? What am I not allowed to share? And I've definitely stumbled in the past where I've messed up and said, fuck, shouldn't have said that. That was not their information to have. Yeah. So it's not too surprising that a Scorpio, who's already very much focused on trust and loyalty, is going to wonder, and again, possibly with very good reason, if the Gemini is trustworthy. That's up to you to decide, Scorpio, to see if the Gemini passes your tests. I urge you to be never forget, but forgive if the Gemini fucks up and says too much. We don't mean to. We just are so, we don't even think about it until afterwards sometimes, which is ironic considering we're air signs. We're supposed to be thinking all the time. But that's to say, we get so preoccupied with thinking about other things and this and that sometimes information comes through. And see, it's very important too, honestly, that the Scorpio doesn't become so paranoid and worried about information getting shared, because that's the whole thing about air energy, is it passes along truth. And the Scorpio could have this very treasured thing, very guarded little bit of information or whatever, and it needs to be shared, but they're so focused on constraining it and controlling it that it never gets shared, and it never benefits people. And honestly, that's where Gemini energy comes in, because there have certainly been times, yes, where I fucked up and I've said too much. But there have been times when the Scorpio's not said enough. And I've literally watched it, and I've also been an agent of helping Scorpio. I wish I could think of a specific example. Um, I can't, even though I know this happens all the time. But in any case, when the Gemini, sometimes it's good for that Gemini to share a little bit of information that you're like, oh, I don't know. Obviously, there's limits, and you know your limits better than anyone else. But I do urge you to kind of be open minded and not, sting automatically when you find that somebody has, when the Gemini has shared more information, to be like, okay, let's see. And, at the end of the day, you can always not trust that person if they don't deserve your trust, and, and move on to somebody who does. So, so an interesting thing before I forget, Gemini is right next to Taurus in the astrological wheel, and so a lot of Geminis have Mercury or Venus in Taurus. And Scorpio is right next to Sag, and a lot of Scorpios have either Mercury or Venus in Sag. And Gemini and Sag, and Taurus and Scorpio are partner signs. And so this is a match made in heaven if you have a Gemini with, say, Mercury and Taurus, or whatever, and the other person is Scorp with a bit of Sag. It's a beautiful combination because, well, it's partner signs. I've already done a video series on that. You can check that out if you're interested. But partner signs are what true love is about in chemistry. Those energies that are so similar to us and yet different. It's right brain versus left brain. For example, Gemini, logical, left brain. Sag, emotional, subjective, right brain. And yet they're both so similar. So that's just a little note. Oh man, I'm already running out of time. There's so much to talk about this relationship. Let me think. What else? What's the next thing? Back to the truth searching. Scorpio is deeply psychic, and Gemini doesn't necessarily understand that. Now, if you're a Gemini with a lot of water, for example, me, I've always prized and loved the psychic sensibilities of Scorpio. And, that sounds good. Psychic sensibilities. Focus, Mercury retrograde, focus. I've always truly loved that insight that Scorpios have to offer. It's been very freeing for me as a Gemini. Gemini is air energy, Even with all my depths and whatnot, with my water energy, I've definitely found myself in the Gemini situation of superficiality. Sometimes that gets very tiresome, and it gets tiresome when you have to smile all the time. And even Gemini, the buoyant, optimistic sign that we are, we are about truth, as all air signs are. And we are all about truth of expression as well, saying what needs to be said. And that's a beautiful thing, because Scorpio is a warrior energy, and they insist on saying what needs to be said, or at least what they feel needs to be said. And when a Scorpio is, at their highest order, they're not just like saying things to stab people. They're saying things because it's the truth, and it gets to the heart of things, and they know it's not even knowing, they find themselves flowing, saying the truth, which sometimes can be very blunt. I remember one time my Scorpio buddy absolutely tore to shreds without I mean, how to put it, he didn't personally attack the other person, but the other person was out of line, and he said exactly how they were out of line, why they are out of line, and how bullshit it was. And that is so, from a Gemini perspective, that's so amazing, because Geminis will notice the exact same thing when somebody's out of line, but they're not necessarily going to go about it. They may say it directly if that's the best way, but we're so adaptable, we can say it any number of ways. And so that kind of directness from Scorpio is very refreshing for a Gemini, and it gives us a freedom of being able to express yourself without having to adapt all the time to other people. And that kind of courage and warrior strength and fierceness is very inspiring. And it's honestly, I've learned a lot from Scorpio energy to be more direct sometimes, and to stop playing games and cutting around, or how's the phrase go? Beating around the bush. And also, Me and my Scorpio friend have said this actually. I've said, you know, I treasure how much I've learned that from you, and he said from, you know, how he's learned to be nicer and kinder and more tolerant. You know, Scorpio can take things so deadly seriously sometimes, and whenever we take things in ourselves it's okay to take things seriously, but it's not okay to take ourselves so damn seriously. And I think that's where Scorpio gains from Gemini, because Gemini doesn't give a fuck. You know, we keep moving. We keep moving no matter what. And even if we say or do something absolutely stupid and foolish, we keep moving. We laugh about it, and we move on. We go, oh God, okay, I learned my lesson, and here I am now. I've gotten past it. And not just that, but when dealing with other people, especially when dealing with other people, Scorpio can be so serious and so dark. And that kind of brevity and lightness is so, honestly, I've seen it transform my Scorpio friend and other Scorpios in my life. They've, dare I say, learned that from me, of how to be a little bit lighter and more tolerant with other people, and not take offense all the time, and not have your sword out ready to kill people all the time. Oh, well, I guess it's Scorpio, not Aries, so have your sword at your hilt, you know, hand lightly but threateningly, you know. It's okay to relax and not have to be worried about getting killed all the time, and not worry about killing other people. You know what I mean? That's a exaggeration. But you know what I mean about being serious all the time and being always on your guard and ready to you know, sting if need be. It's just like, okay, calm down. Life isn't all about conflict. And when people are talking to you, even if they say something incredibly offensive and rude, you know, I've found that Scorpios really gain from the Gemini sense of chaos and fun. And for example, when I'm insulted, I honestly think it's funny. I mean, obviously, yes, my waters are like, why are they insulting me? What's going on in their lives? Why are they, you know, where are they coming from? This isn't a good place. It's fear, it's pain, it's, you know, even though I'm sorting through all of that. And that's one of your gifts, Scorpio, is to sort through people's emotions. And, you know, to brood and to find the reason why. But at the same time, there have been so many times when, you know, people will say things to bait me, and I just laugh it off, and it's just so silly, because ultimately it doesn't matter. That's not what I care about. I don't care if some stranger attacks me or whatever. That doesn't matter to me. I have more important things to think about. And in fact, I usually laugh because the way they, you know, attacked or whatever. Whenever you attack somebody else or insult somebody else, you're in such a bad place yourself that you can't even see the other person practically. And not truly. And what you say in those moments of fear, of pain, of anger is so revealing about you, you know, than the other person. So when I find myself in that situation, I usually just like end up laughing later. You know, I don't need them to see it, but I just end up totally laughing at how ridiculous it was, and also, you know, what I could gain from all that, from that situation, what I can gain from what that says about that person, about me, about life, about just, you know, about the universe. And honestly, I find that that's a very useful tool for Scorpios to learn. And Geminis are the best teachers for that, honestly, of levity, of relax, who cares, who gives a fuck, let them go, you know, live their lives, it doesn't matter. That's definitely a beautiful, beautiful part of this relationship. Oh man, I'm running out of time. There's more. I will certainly do more videos along my lifetime with all my videos, but especially this one. There's a lot more to talk about. But for now, is there anything else? I guess, you know, just advice in general is respect your differences. Scorpio, don't try and own Gemini. Gemini, don't try and perpetually get Scorpio to be something they're not by being, you know, light and fun and free. Yes, Scorpio can learn from that, but Scorpio needs to be themselves. And part of who they are is the dark and broodingness, because they find beauty and they contribute their gifts to the world through that. They need to have those dark solitude times in which they're just in the cave, you know? And it's important for us to respect that. And so with these two signs, so much, infinitely is possible. Infinitely is possible. If they just get past their challenges, if they just get past their differences, they learn to trust each other, they learn to be themselves with each other, and you know, to forgive each other for any fuck ups along the way. You know, say Scorpio is acting inappropriately because they were so, you know, dark and whatnot, that they stung somebody, the Gemini, on accident, or, you know, because they're just whatever. I mean, the Scorpio should apologize, but the Gemini should realize, okay, I just need to give them some time. And vice versa. The Gemini should apologize if they talk too much or whatever. But the Scorpio should, okay, and again, to each their own. It is up to you to find your comfortable limits. But it is important to be very tolerant with each other in this relationship, because you are very different in some ways. And once you find that solid ground between you, then everything else is beautiful. Namaste.